And I'll be your bridge o'er troubled water. When you're down, I will carry you like a bridge o'er troubled water. I will lay me down. That's just the song I always think of when I see this problem or when people bring it up to me to ask questions about it. So I thought I would show you how much fun this problem can be through song. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you think I'm absolutely an idiot, that's just fine too. But here's what we got. In 1980, the Crow River was 32 feet below the bridge. And then over time, there comes to be this silt built up on the bottom. So thus, because there's more of that silt and rocks and stuff like that that gets built up, the distance between the bridge and the water becomes less, as it's only 14 feet in 1996. So what is the correct equation for D, the distance of the river from the bridge, where t equals 0 represents 1980? And as you can see, this is objective number 9 practice. So make sure that if you are stumped on objective number 9, you come back and watch this video again as a reminder. So here's what we got. We have this bridge, okay? And I'm just going to have a two-dimensional bridge here. That's going to be a pillar of my bridge, okay? So here's the top of it. And thus, here would be the water at the bottom. Okay? All right. So in 1980, that's going to be this bridge. In 1980, the river was 32 feet below the bridge. So from this point to this point is 32 feet. All right. And over time, the distance between the two becomes less. So now we have this exact same bridge in 1996, but now it is only, what is it? It's only 14 feet, the water is. So this distance right here is now 14 feet. So as you can see, we have a line that is clearly negative. We have a negative slope line. And what our goal in this problem is, we want to find the equation of this line, most likely in y equals mx plus b form. Now it says, what is the correct equation for D? That's the distance of the river bottom, where t, that's time, represents, t equals 0 represents 1980. So when we're used to seeing the x-axis, instead, that is going to be our time parameter. So t time is going to be our x-axis. Our y-axis, usually when we see y, our y-axis is going to be our other parameter, which is distance. Distance in feet. So whenever you see y equals mx plus b, or when you see ax plus by equals c, or y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1, your y variable is now going to be your d variable. Your x variable, that is now going to become your time or your t variable. All right, so here's what we have. We got to get 2 points. What is this point right here? You might say that the x, y coordinate, the x coordinate is time, so time is 1980. So you might put 1980 right here. And what is your y variable of this point right here? The distance is 32 feet. So class, if you've gotten this part, if you've understood this, this is all great. However, this 1980 right here isn't quite right. And that's just because t equals 0 represents 1980. So when you see 1980, instead, that represents 0. So this point, now instead of 1980, 32 is 0, 32. All right, so that's 1 point. Here is your other point. Your other point is 1996 and 14. 1996 and 14. However, just like the last one though, in 1996, t equals 0 represents 1980, Boy, I have a problem with my short-term memory. 1980. So t equals 0 represents 1980. So 1996 is then 16 years after 1980. So instead of this being 1996, this is 16 years after 1980. So that is why our 2 points are 032 and 1614. So just to review once again, this is 1980, but 0 represents that year, and this is 1996. However, 16 represents that year. So now we got to get our equation. Class, we are given 2 points. 2 video lessons ago, you learned how to write an equation of a line given 2 points. The first thing you have to do is you have to find that slope. Review, slope y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So your goal here is to subtract the y's, put them in the numerator, which is 14 minus 32. 14 minus 32. Subtract the x's, which is 16 minus 0. And then you simply simplify that fraction. 14 minus 32 is a negative 18. And 16 minus 0 is 16. Let's reduce that fraction. 2 goes into both of them to make it a negative 9/8. My slope is a negative 9/8. All right, once you have this, you can now use either one of these 2 points, it doesn't matter, and put it into point slope form, which is, as a review, y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. When I do this problem, class, it doesn't matter what points you use, but I more so often use this point, and the reason for that, it's because it has a 0 in it right here, and zeros are easy problems to add, subtract, multiply, divide, so that's why I always use a 0. So, it's going to be y minus my y coordinate. My y coordinate is 32. Y minus 32. That equals my slope, which I found to be a negative 9/8 times the quantity x minus my x coordinate, and my x coordinate is 0. This would be your answer in point slope form. I don't think Excel Math has their answers in point slope form. I believe it's slope intercept. So let's get it into y equals mx plus b form. First, by distributing that negative 9/8, y minus 32, that equals a negative 9/8 x plus 0. So just negative 9/8 x. And then we have to get y all by itself, so let's add the 32. And we have y equals a negative 9/8 x plus 32. I believe Excel Math has this for their answer, y equals mx plus b form. However, they don't use y's and x's. Every time you see a y, you're now going to put a d. So we have d equals a negative 9/8 x, and x is this time variable, which is t, plus 32. This, class, I believe, is the answer that they want you to have on Excel Math. Let's quickly practice to put it in standard form, just in case Excel Math ever asks for that. And it's always good practice as well. So we got to get into ax plus by equals c, or ad plus bt equals c. A little bit confusing, but we just have to get the 2 variables on the same side all by itself. So let's add the 9/8 t, add the 9/8 t. So we would get 9/8 t plus a d, that equals 32. Remember, in standard form, we have to have integers as coefficients. Can't have fractions, can't have decimals. So this fraction's got to go. Multiply the whole thing by 8. And that'll take care of this. So then you would just get 9t. 8 times d is 8d. And 8 times 32 is 256. So this would be their answer. This would be the answer if they asked for it in standard form. So there is your bridge problem. If any of you have trouble on this one, oopsie, this is slope-intercept form. If any of you have troubles on this one, make sure that you go back to the Moodle page and see it under the list of videos, because you could certainly ask me a question. I have no problem with that. But if you're stumped with it at home, hopefully this should clear up any questions that you might have.